The year is 3247. Somewhere in the cold silence of deep space, inside the most powerful room in the entire galaxy, a decision was made. A decision that would change everything. The Galactic Council, made up of over 400 alien species, gathered together. They reviewed the files. They checked the records. They looked at the data one final time. And then they voted. Humanity was declared extinct. Gone. Finished. Erased from every star map. Deleted from every galactic database. The species known as humans, the strange, loud, emotional, unpredictable creatures from a small blue planet called Earth, were officially no more. The council moved on. They celebrated, actually. Because to most of the galaxy, humans were not missed. Humans were feared. Humans were chaotic. Humans asked too many questions, broke too many rules, and refused to stay in their place. So when the reports came in that Earth had gone silent, no signals, no ships, no transmissions, the council did not mourn. They breathed a sigh of relief. Case closed. File deleted. Species extinct. But here is the thing about humans. Nobody told us we were supposed to be dead. And 1,000 years later, 1,000 years after the galaxy wrote us off, celebrated our disappearance, and moved on with their perfect little cosmic order, two humans walked through the doors of the Galactic Council chamber. No invitation. No permission. No warning. Just two humans, standing in the center of the most powerful room in the universe, holding a briefcase full of evidence, and staring at 400 alien species who had just realized the biggest mistake they ever made. This is that story. This is the moment the galaxy learned that you do not declare humanity extinct. Not unless you are absolutely 100% sure. And they were not. Let me show you exactly how this happened. The story does not start with the two humans who walked into that council chamber. It starts 1,012 years before that moment. It starts on a Tuesday. Nobody remembers the exact date anymore. The records were destroyed. The files were wiped. But the people who lived through it, the ones who survived, they never forgot that Tuesday. They passed the story down. Generation after generation. Parent to child. Grandparent to grandchild. The story of the Tuesday the sky went dark. Marcus Webb was 11 years old when it happened. He was sitting in a classroom in Manchester, England. It was raining outside, because it was always raining in Manchester. His teacher was writing something on the board about ancient history. Something about the Roman Empire. Marcus was not paying attention. He was drawing a spaceship in the corner of his notebook. A small, clunky little spaceship with a big engine and a tiny window. He had always loved space. He used to tell his mom that one day he would fly to the stars. She would laugh and ruffle his hair and say, "Of course you will, love." She never told him it was impossible. She never told him to be realistic. She just smiled and believed him. Marcus never forgot that. He was drawing his little spaceship when the lights went out. Not just in the classroom, not just in the school. Every light in Manchester went out at the exact same moment. Every screen, every phone, every car, every traffic light. Everything electrical, gone, silent, dead. The classroom went completely dark. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the teacher said, very quietly, "Everyone stay calm." And then the sound started. It was not a loud sound. That was the strange thing. It was not an explosion or a crash or a roar. It was a low, deep hum. The kind of sound you feel in your chest more than you hear with your ears. A vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. From the walls, from the floor, from the sky itself. Marcus walked to the window. He pressed his face against the cold glass and looked up. The clouds were gone. Not moved. Not blown away. Gone. The entire sky above Manchester was perfectly clear, which was already strange enough. But that was not what made Marcus stop breathing. What made him stop breathing was the shape. It was enormous. Bigger than anything he had ever seen. Bigger than the city. It blocked out the sun like a second sky, a massive, dark geometric structure hanging in the atmosphere above them. silent, still, just hovering there like it had always been there and was only now choosing to be seen. Marcus stared at it for a long time. Then he whispered, "Cool." He was 11. He did not fully understand what he was looking at, but the adults did, and across the world, in London, in New York, in Lagos, in Mumbai, in Beijing, in São Paulo, every adult who looked up at that same shape in their sky understood exactly what it meant. They were not alone. They had never been alone. And whoever was up there had just decided to stop hiding. The next 72 hours were the most chaotic in human history. Every government on Earth went into emergency mode. Every military scrambled. Every news channel ran the same footage on a loop. That massive dark shape hanging in the sky, silent and patient, waiting. No communication came from the ship. Not at first. It just waited. And humanity did what humanity always does when it is scared, and confused, and staring at something it does not understand. It argued. Some people said it was an invasion. Some said it was first contact. Some said it was a test. Religious groups gathered in the streets. Scientists held emergency press conferences. Politicians gave speeches that said absolutely nothing useful. Social media exploded with theories, memes, panic, and, somehow, jokes. Because that is humans. Even at the end of the world, someone is making jokes. On the fourth day, the communication came. It was not a voice. It was not a signal. It was a direct transmission, beamed straight into every electronic device on Earth simultaneously. Every phone, every computer, every television, every radio. All at once, the same message, in every language, perfectly translated, as if whoever sent it had been studying humanity for a very long time. The message was short. It said, "You have been observed. You have been evaluated. A decision has been reached. Representatives of the Galactic Council will arrive in 72 hours. Prepare your leaders." That was it. No greeting. No explanation. No warmth. Just a deadline. Humanity had 72 hours to figure out who spoke for the entire human race. As you can imagine, that did not go smoothly. Every nation wanted their leader to be the one. Every government argued about protocol and precedent, and who had the most authority. The United Nations held an emergency session that lasted 40 hours straight, and ended with no agreement. The Americans wanted the US president. The Europeans wanted a joint delegation. The African Union proposed a rotating panel. China suggested a committee. Russia suggested nothing, and watched everyone else argue. In the end, it was not a politician who stepped forward. It was a scientist. Her name was Dr. Amara Osei. She was 43 years old. She was from Accra, Ghana. She had spent her entire career studying theoretical xenolinguistics, the science of how alien languages might work. She had written papers that most of her colleagues thought were a waste of time. She had spent 20 years preparing for a moment that everyone told her would never come. And then it came. She did not ask for permission. She did not wait for a committee to approve her. She simply walked into the United Nations building in New York, sat down in front of the Emergency Council and said, "I know how to talk to them. Let me go." Nobody had a better idea. So they let her go. When the alien shuttle landed, a sleek, dark vessel that touched down in the middle of Central Park like it owned the place, Dr. Osei was the one who walked forward to meet it. She was alone. She had asked to go alone. She said a crowd would look like a threat. She said one person, walking calmly, hands visible, no weapons. That was the right message. That was the message of a species that was not afraid. A species that was ready to talk. The shuttle door opened. What stepped out was not what anyone expected. The alien was tall, nearly 3 meters. Its skin was a deep, iridescent blue-gray, shifting color slightly as it moved, like oil on water. It had 4 arms, 2 sets of eyes, 1 pair facing forward, 1 pair on the sides of its head, and it moved with a slow, deliberate grace that made it look like it was always thinking 3 steps ahead. It stopped in front of Dr. Osai. It looked at her for a long moment. And then it spoke. Not in any human language, a series of tones and clicks and low harmonic sounds that should have been completely incomprehensible. But Dr. Osei had spent 20 years preparing for this. She listened, she processed, and then, slowly, carefully, she responded. Not perfectly, not fluently, but enough. Enough to make the alien stop. Enough to make it tilt its head slightly, a gesture that, she would later learn, meant something close to surprise, enough to begin. That conversation in Central Park lasted 6 hours. Dr. Osei stood the entire time. She did not eat, she did not sit, she did not ask for a break. She just talked, and listened, and talked again. When it was over, she walked back to the waiting crowd of officials and cameras and anxious faces. They all asked the same question at once. What did they say? What do they want? Are we safe? Dr. Osei was quiet for a moment. Then she said, they want us to come to a meeting. A galactic meeting, with every other species in the known universe. Everyone started talking at once. She held up her hand. There is one condition, she said. The crowd went silent. They want to evaluate us first. They want to decide if we are worthy of a seat at the table. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then someone in the back, a junior diplomat from somewhere in Europe, asked the question everyone was thinking. And if we are not worthy? Dr. Osei looked at him. Then they leave, she said. And they never come back. She did not tell them the other part. Not yet. She did not tell them what the alien had said at the very end of their conversation, in a quiet tone that she had barely been able to translate. She did not tell them that the evaluation had already begun, that it had begun the moment the ships appeared in the sky, that humanity was already being judged, and that the preliminary results were not good. The evaluation lasted 3 years. 3 years of alien observers walking among humans. 3 years of silent watchers recording everything. Every war, every crime, every act of cruelty, every moment of selfishness and greed and violence that humanity put on display. And humanity, being humanity, put on quite a display. In the first 6 months alone, there were 4 regional conflicts, 2 economic collapses, 17 political scandals, and 1 very embarrassing incident where a group of protesters threw things at an alien observation vessel parked outside the United Nations building. The alien inside the vessel did not react. It just recorded everything. Dr. Osei spent those 3 years as humanity's primary liaison. She traveled constantly. She met with alien observers. She answered their questions. She tried to explain humanity, which, she quickly discovered, was one of the hardest things anyone had ever attempted. How do you explain humanity to a species that has never seen anything like it? How do you explain that the same creature that writes poetry and builds hospitals and sacrifices everything for a stranger also starts wars over invisible lines on a map? How do you explain that humans can be breathtakingly kind and breathtakingly cruel, sometimes in the same afternoon? The alien observers did not understand this. Their species, all 400 of them, operated on logic, on order, on carefully structured social systems that had been refined over millions of years. They had long ago eliminated the messy, chaotic, contradictory impulses that made humans so difficult to categorize. To them, humanity was not just primitive, it was unstable. And unstable species were dangerous. Dr. Osei knew this. She could see it in the way the observers wrote their reports. She could hear it in the careful, neutral tone of their questions. They were not curious about humanity. They were concerned about it. She tried everything. She took them to hospitals and showed them doctors working 20-hour shifts to save lives. She took them to schools and showed them children learning, asking questions, dreaming out loud. She took them to disaster zones and showed them strangers helping strangers, people who had lost everything, giving what little they had left to someone who had lost even more. The observers recorded all of it, but they also recorded the wars, the pollution, the inequality, the prisons, the weapons, The long, ugly history of what humans did to each other and to their planet. At the end of 3 years, the lead observer, the same tall blue-gray alien who had first stepped out of the shuttle in Central Park, requested a final meeting with Dr. Osai. She went alone, as always. They met in a small room aboard the alien vessel. The alien sat across from her. It was quiet for a long time. Then it spoke. Dr. Osei listened. Her face did not change. She had trained herself over 3 years to keep her face calm no matter what she heard. It was a skill she had developed out of necessity. Because some of the things the aliens said, some of the things they observed about humanity, were hard to hear. This was the hardest. The alien told her that the evaluation was complete, that the report had been submitted to the Galactic Council, that the Council would review it and make a decision within 30 days. And then it told her what the report said. It said that humanity showed significant potential, creativity, adaptability, emotional complexity, a capacity for connection and sacrifice that was, frankly, unlike anything the Council had ever documented. But the report also said that humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too prone to violence and self-destruction, that the risk of allowing humanity into the galactic community, of giving humans access to advanced technology, to faster-than-light travel, to the resources of the wider universe, was too great. The recommendation was isolation. Permanent. Total isolation. A barrier would be placed around Earth's solar system. No human ship would ever be allowed to leave. No alien ship would ever be allowed to enter. Humanity would be left alone, completely, permanently, forever, to do whatever it did to itself, without ever being able to affect the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Osei sat with this for a moment. Then she asked one question. Can I address the Council directly, before they vote? The alien was quiet for a long time. Then it said, That has never been done before. I know, she said. Can I? Another long silence. I will ask, it said finally. It took 2 weeks to get an answer. The answer was no. The Council did not accept outside addresses. The process was fixed. The report had been submitted. The vote would happen. Humanity had no voice in the matter. Dr. Osai went back to Earth. She did not tell the world leaders what the report said. Not all of it. She told them the Council was deliberating. She told them to be patient. She told them to keep doing what they were doing. And then she went home to her apartment in Accra, sat down at her desk, and started writing. She wrote for 11 days straight. She wrote everything. Everything she had seen in 3 years of working with the alien observers. Everything she had learned about the Council, about their values, about what they respected and what they feared. She wrote about humanity, not the sanitized diplomatic version she had been presenting for 3 years, but the real version. The complicated, contradictory, magnificent, terrible, beautiful, broken, extraordinary version. She wrote about Marcus Webb. She had met him during the 2nd year of the evaluation. He was not 11 anymore. He was in his early 20s. He had grown up watching the alien ships in the sky, and decided, with the absolute certainty of someone who has never been told they cannot do something, that he was going to be the first human to fly one. He had taught himself xenomechanics from intercepted alien technical transmissions. He had built a working model of an alien propulsion system in his garage in Manchester, using parts from a washing machine, a microwave, and 3 car engines. It did not actually fly. But it worked on the same principles. And when Dr. Osei's team tested it, they found that his understanding of the technology was, somehow, almost correct. He was 22 years old, and had never left Earth, and he had nearly reverse-engineered faster-than-light travel from a garage in Manchester. She wrote about him. She wrote about the woman in Sao Paulo, who had spent the evaluation period organizing a global network of volunteers to clean up ocean plastic, not because anyone asked her to, not because there was any reward, but because she looked at the ocean and decided it deserved better. She wrote about the teacher in rural Kenya who had no electricity, no internet, no resources, and who had still managed to get 47 students into university in the past decade through nothing but determination and belief. She wrote about all of them. And then she sent the document to the one alien she trusted. The tall, blue-gray one. The lead observer. The one who had stood in Central Park and been surprised by her. She sent it with a single message. This is what your report missed. She never got a response. The council voted 3 days later. The result was not what she had hoped for. But it was not what she had feared either. The vote was not for isolation. The vote was for something worse. The council voted to classify humanity as a Class 7 unstable species, a designation that had only been used 4 times in galactic history. It meant humanity was considered an active threat to galactic stability. It meant that Earth would not just be isolated, it would be monitored, contained, and if humanity ever developed the capability to leave its solar system on its own, if humans ever built their own faster-than-light ships, the Council reserved the right to intervene. Intervene was a diplomatic word. Everyone knew what it meant. Dr. Osei read the decision in her apartment in Accra. She sat very still for a very long time. Then she picked up her pen and started writing again, because she was not done yet. Not even close. The containment barrier went up 6 months after the vote. Humanity did not see it. Could not see it. It was not a physical wall, not something you could fly a rocket into and bounce off of. It was more subtle than that. A field of some kind. A technology so far beyond human understanding that the best scientists on Earth spent years arguing about whether it even existed. But it did exist. Because the signals stopped. Every deep space probe humanity had ever launched, Voyager, Pioneer, New Horizons, all the others, went silent on the same day. Not broken. Not lost. Just silent. As if something had reached out and gently turned them off. And every attempt to launch a new probe beyond a certain distance from Earth failed. Not dramatically. Not with explosions. The rockets would just stop. Lose power. Drift. As if the universe itself had put up a polite but firm hand and said, "Not yet." Most people on Earth never knew about the barrier. The governments knew. The scientists suspected. But the official story, the story that went out to the public, was that the alien ships had left, the evaluation was over, and humanity had been given a kind of cosmic probation. Behave yourselves. Grow up, and maybe, someday, you will be invited to join the wider community. It was not entirely a lie. It was just missing a few important details. Like the part where the council had seriously debated whether to simply sterilize the planet and start over. Dr. Osei knew all of this. She carried it with her every day. She continued her work, officially as a xenolinguistics consultant for the UN, unofficially as the one human being who had any real understanding of what was happening beyond the barrier. She also continued her relationship with the lead observer. He had not responded to her document. But he had not disappeared either. Occasionally, rarely and always through encrypted channels that she was not supposed to know about, he would send her a small piece of information, a fragment of a council debate, a note about a vote that was coming, a quiet warning. She never knew why he did it. She asked him once. He said, "Your document was not ignored." That was all he said. She held on to that. Years passed. Decades passed. The alien ships remained in orbit. Not many, just a few. Watchers, keeping an eye on the contained species below. Making sure the barrier held. Making sure humanity stayed put. And humanity, not knowing it was contained, kept doing what humanity does. It kept moving forward. The climate crisis that had been building for a century finally reached its breaking point 40 years after the barrier went up. It was bad. Very bad. Coastal cities flooded. Droughts spread across continents. Food systems collapsed in regions that had never known hunger. It was the kind of catastrophe that the alien observers had predicted, the kind of self-inflicted disaster that had been used as evidence in the Council's decision. But something unexpected happened. Humanity fixed it. Not quickly, not cleanly, not without enormous suffering and loss, but over the course of 3 generations, through a combination of technology and cooperation and sheer stubborn refusal to give up, humanity pulled itself back from the edge. New energy systems, New agricultural methods. New ways of organizing cities and managing resources. A global environmental restoration project that took 50 years and involved every nation on Earth working together in a way they never had before. The alien watchers recorded all of this. Their reports went back to the Council. The Council noted it, filed it, and moved on. Because to the Council, this was expected. Species either destroyed themselves or they didn't. Humanity had not destroyed itself. That was not remarkable. That was just the minimum requirement for continued existence. What the Council did not note, what their reports failed to capture, was something harder to measure. Something that was happening in garages and laboratories and classrooms and workshops all over the planet. Humans were building things, not just the environmental technology, not just the clean energy systems. Something else, something that had started with a young man in Manchester who had nearly reverse-engineered faster than light travel from washing machine parts. His name was Marcus Webb, and he had not stopped. He was in his 50s now, gray at the temples, quieter than he had been as a young man, but his eyes still had that same quality, that absolute, unshakable certainty that the stars were not out of reach. He had spent his entire adult life working on one problem. How do you leave a solar system when the universe itself is telling you to stay? He had a team now. A small one, 12 people, working in a facility that officially did not exist, funded by a network of private donors who officially knew nothing about what they were funding. They had been working for 30 years. They had failed hundreds of times. They had come close twice. On the third time, they did not fail. It was not a dramatic moment. There was no countdown, no crowd, no cameras, just 12 exhausted people in a basement laboratory watching a small probe, about the size of a shoebox, disappear from their sensors. Not because it broke, because it went through. Marcus Webb sat down on the floor of the laboratory and put his face in his hands. His colleague, a young woman named Priya, who had joined the team straight out of university and had never once doubted they would succeed, sat down next to him. "We did it," she said. He nodded. He could not speak yet. "What do we do now?" she asked. He took a long breath. He looked up at the ceiling, at the concrete and steel above them, and beyond that the sky, and beyond that the barrier, and beyond that the stars. "Now," he said, "we build something bigger." Word travels fast, even in secret. Within a year of Marcus Webb's breakthrough, 3 other independent research teams around the world had made similar discoveries. They had all been working on the same problem from different angles. They had all hit the same wall. And now, somehow, through a combination of leaked data, parallel thinking, and what some of them would later describe as an almost eerie sense of convergence, they had all found the same door. The barrier could be passed. Not easily, not cheaply, not without enormous technical sophistication. But it could be done. The governments found out, of course. Governments always find out. And the response was exactly what you would expect. Panic, secrecy, emergency meetings, classified briefings, and a very intense debate about what to do next. Some said do nothing. The barrier was there for a reason. The aliens had put it there. Poking at it was dangerous. Poking at it might be seen as aggression. Poking at it might bring the ships back, and not in a friendly way. Some said go. Go now. Go fast. Go before the aliens realized what was happening. Break through the barrier, get out into the galaxy, and establish a presence before anyone could stop them. And some, a smaller group, but a persistent one, said something different. They said, go, but go honestly. Go openly. Go with your hands visible and your intentions clear. Do not sneak. Do not hide. Walk through that barrier and announce yourselves to the galaxy the same way Dr. Osei had walked across Central Park to meet the alien shuttle. Alone. Calm. Unafraid. Dr. Osei herself was 81 years old by this point. She had retired from official work a decade earlier. But she was still sharp. Still connected. Still, quietly, in contact with the lead observer. When the debate reached her, and it did reach her, because everyone who mattered still called her when they did not know what to do, she listened to all the arguments. Then she said, "Send 2 people. Send them to the council directly. Not sneaking. Not hiding. Walk in through the front door." Everyone stared at her. "They will never allow it," someone said. "They did not allow me to address the council either," she said. "And I did it anyway." "You did not address the council," someone pointed out. "You sent a document." This time she said, "Send people." There was a very long silence. "Who?" someone asked. She smiled. "I know exactly who," she said. Marcus Webb was 67 years old when Dr. Osei called him. He was in his workshop in Manchester, still in Manchester, always in Manchester, working on the 3rd generation of the barrier crossing technology. He picked up the call on the first ring. She told him what she wanted. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Who else?" "Priya," she said. "She is ready." Priya Sharma was 39. She had been with Marcus's team for 17 years. She spoke 4 languages and had a mind that moved so fast it sometimes seemed like she was answering questions before they were asked. She was also, by any measure, the best pilot on the team, which was relevant, because the ship they were going to take through the barrier was not much bigger than a large van. When Marcus called her and told her what Dr. Osei had proposed, she was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Then she said, "When do we leave?" The preparation took 8 months. 8 months of building, testing, planning, arguing, rebuilding, retesting. 8 months of learning everything they could about the Galactic Council, its structure, its protocols, its history, its values. Dr. Osei spent those 8 months in daily contact with them, teaching them everything she knew, everything she had learned in 3 years of working with the alien observers, every cultural nuance, every communication protocol, every mistake she had made and what she had learned from it. She also gave them the document she had written 80 years earlier, the one she had sent to the lead observer. "Read it," she said. "Not because it will help you argue, but because it will remind you what you are arguing for." They read it. Marcus read it 3 times. On the last night before departure, he sat alone in his workshop and looked at the little spaceship drawing he had made in his notebook when he was 11 years old. He had kept it all these years, a faded, crumpled piece of paper with a clunky little ship and a tiny window. He folded it carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. The next morning, at 4:47 a.m., with no ceremony and no crowd and no cameras, Marcus Webb and Priya Sharma climbed into their small ship, fired the engines, and left Earth. They passed through the barrier at 6:23 a.m. The alien watchers detected the breach immediately. Alarms went off across the monitoring network. Emergency protocols activated. 3 council warships were dispatched to intercept. But by the time they arrived at the breach point, the small human ship was already gone. It had jumped, faster than light, heading directly for the coordinates of the Galactic Council chamber. The Council chamber was located in a star system so old that the star at its center had already begun to dim. It was a place of immense history, the oldest continuously operating governing body in the known galaxy, with records stretching back over 2 million years. 412 species had seats in that chamber. Decisions made there had shaped the fates of civilizations, ended wars, opened trade routes across thousands of light years. Nothing unauthorized had ever entered that chamber, not once, in 2 million years, until a small human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel approximately 40 kilometers from the chamber's outer docking ring, broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously in 47 different alien languages. All of them learned from intercepted transmissions. All of them, imperfect. All of them unmistakably, defiantly human. The message was simple. This is Marcus Webb and Priya Sharma of Earth. We are human. We are not extinct. We are requesting an audience with the Galactic Council. We come in peace. We come with evidence. And we are not leaving until someone listens. The council chamber went into immediate lockdown. 300 security vessels scrambled. The council itself, in the middle of a routine session about trade regulations in the outer spiral arm, was interrupted by an emergency alert that none of them had ever seen before in their lifetimes. A Class 7 contained species had breached its barrier. And it had come here. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Some council members wanted the ship destroyed immediately. A contained species breaching its barrier was, technically, grounds for immediate termination under galactic law. The humans had broken the rules. The response was clear. Others argued for caution. The ship was small. 2 occupants. No weapons detected. They were broadcasting peace signals. Destroying them without at least hearing what they had to say would set a precedent that made the council look, and several alien species used a word that roughly translated as afraid. The council did not like that word. In the end, it was the lead observer. Now, very old, by his species' standards, but still present, still serving on the council as a senior advisor, who made the deciding argument. He stood up in the chamber. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that nobody expected. He said, "I have been waiting for this." The chamber went very still. He told them about the document. The one Dr. Osei had sent him 80 years ago. The one he had read and reread and never officially submitted to the council because he had not known what to do with it. The one that had stayed with him for 8 decades because it had shown him something that none of their reports, none of their evaluations, none of their careful scientific observations had managed to capture. He told them what the document said. He told them about Marcus Webb, the 11-year-old boy drawing spaceships in a classroom in Manchester. He told them about the woman cleaning the ocean. He told them about the teacher in Kenya. He told them about all of it. And then he said, "We declared them extinct because we stopped watching. We filed our report and we moved on and we stopped paying attention. And in the time we were not watching, they did something that no contained species has ever done. They did not just survive. They grew. They changed. They fixed what was broken. And then they built a ship. And they came here." He paused. "Not to attack us," he said. "Not to demand anything. To talk. To ask for a seat at the table. The same thing they asked for 1,000 years ago." Another pause. "I think," he said quietly, "that we owe them the courtesy of listening." The vote to allow the human ship to dock was not unanimous. But it passed. Marcus and Priya guided their small ship into the docking bay of the Galactic Council chamber. They suited up. Not in military gear. Not in anything aggressive. Simple clothes. Practical. Human. Marcus had his notebook drawing in his pocket. Priya had a data drive containing everything. Every piece of evidence they had brought. Every record of human progress over the past 1,000 years. Every document Dr. Osei had ever written. The docking bay doors opened. They walked out. 412 alien species were watching on screens throughout the chamber. Security personnel lined the corridor. The air was thick with tension, a tension that translated across every species barrier, that needed no translation at all. Marcus and Priya walked down that corridor side by side. Neither of them looked afraid. Because they were not afraid. They had come too far to be afraid. The chamber was larger than anything Marcus had ever imagined. He had seen pictures, intercepted images from alien databases, reconstructed from fragments of data. But pictures did not capture the scale of it. The sheer, overwhelming size of a room built to hold the representatives of 400 civilizations. Tier upon tier of seats, rising up into a ceiling so high it was lost in shadow. Thousands of alien faces, every shape, every color, every configuration of eyes and limbs and sensory organs that evolution had ever produced, all turned toward the 2 small humans standing in the center of the floor. Marcus had a sudden vivid memory of being 11 years old, standing at a classroom window, looking up at the alien ship in the sky. He had thought, "Cool." He thought it again now. Priya stepped forward first. She activated the translation device, a piece of technology they had built themselves, based on Dr. Osei's original work, refined over decades. It was not perfect, but it was good enough. She spoke in Galactic Standard, the common language of the Council, which she had spent 8 months learning. "My name is Priya Sharma," she said. "I am from Earth. I am human, and I am here because 1,000 years ago, someone in this room made a mistake. The silence in the chamber was absolute. You declared us extinct," she said. "You were wrong." She let that sit for a moment, Then she said, "We are not here to be angry about that. We are not here to demand an apology. We are here because we believe that the decision made 1,000 years ago was based on incomplete information, and we have brought the rest of the information with us." She held up the data drive. "Everything is here," she said. 1,000 years of human history. Not the edited version. Not the diplomatic version. The real version. Everything we did wrong. Everything we did right. Everything we learned. Everything we built. Everything we became. She paused. "We are asking for one thing. Look at the evidence. All of it. And then make a new decision. A fair one. Based on who we actually are, not who we were 1,000 years ago." She stepped back. Marcus stepped forward. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out the folded piece of paper. He unfolded it carefully. He held it up, a small faded drawing of a clunky little spaceship with a tiny window, made by an 11-year-old boy in a classroom in Manchester on the day the world changed. "I drew this the day your ships appeared in our sky," he said. "I was 11 years old. I did not know what was happening. I did not know you were evaluating us. I did not know you were afraid of us. I just looked up at your ship and thought it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen." His voice was steady, quiet, but it carried. "I have spent my entire life trying to get here," he said. "Not to fight you, not to threaten you, just to be here. In this room. With all of you. Because this is where the future gets decided. And humans deserve to be part of that conversation." He folded the drawing and put it back in his pocket. "We are not perfect," he said. "We know that. We have done terrible things. We have hurt each other and our planet. And we have made mistakes that we are still paying for. But we have also done extraordinary things. And we are still here. After everything, after the barrier, after the containment, after being declared extinct and forgotten, we are still here." He looked up at the tiers of alien faces surrounding him. "That has to count for something," he said. The chamber was silent for a very long time. Then the lead observer, old now, moving slowly but still present, rose from his seat. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he said, "In Galactic Standard, it counts for a great deal." The debate that followed lasted 3 days. 3 days of arguments and counter-arguments, of evidence reviewed and challenged and reviewed again, of old fears confronted and old assumptions questioned. 3 days of the most intense deliberation the Galactic Council had conducted in centuries. Marcus and Priya were not present for most of it. They waited in a small room near the docking bay. They slept in shifts. They ate the food that was brought to them, strange, unfamiliar things that they ate anyway, because they were hungry and because refusing felt rude. On the second day, a young alien, barely an adult by its species standards, came to their room. It was small, with large, curious eyes and a tentative manner. It stood in the doorway for a moment, then held out something. It was a drawing, a rough sketch, made on some kind of alien material, of a small ship with a tiny window. It had seen the drawing Marcus held up in the chamber, and it had made its own version. Marcus took it carefully. He looked at it for a long time. Then he smiled. On the third day, the council voted. The result was not unanimous. It was never going to be unanimous. There were species in that chamber who would never trust humanity, who would always see humans as a threat, who would spend the rest of their lives arguing that the decision made that day was a mistake. But the majority voted yes. The containment barrier around Earth's solar system would be removed. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the galactic community. Not a full seat. Not yet. But an observer status with a path to full membership. A path with conditions, with oversight, with requirements that would take generations to meet. But a path. An open door. When Marcus and Priya walked back into the docking bay and climbed into their small ship, Marcus sat in the pilot's seat for a long moment before starting the engines. Priya looked at him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Dr. Osei," he said. "She should have been here. Priya was quiet for a moment. She said. Everything we said in there, that was her. Everything we knew, everything we understood, everything that made them listen, that was 80 years of her work. Marcus thought about that. Then he started the engines. They flew home. When they broke through the barrier, from the outside this time coming back, the barrier flickered, weakened. And 3 days later, it went down entirely. Earth's sky was open again. The stars were no longer out of reach. Marcus Webb stood outside his workshop in Manchester and looked up at the sky. It was raining. Of course. It was always raining in Manchester. But through the clouds, he could see a faint light. A star, or maybe a ship, it was hard to tell. He reached into his pocket and touched the folded piece of paper. He had been 11 years old when he drew that spaceship. He was 67 now. And the stars were finally, truly, within reach. Here is the part of the story that nobody talks about. The part that changes everything. After the vote, after Marcus and Priya flew home, after the barrier came down and Earth's sky opened up again, the lead observer filed one final report with the council. It was not a long report. It was 3 sentences. It said, the human species was never the threat we believed them to be. The threat we feared was our own reflection, the memory of what we once were. Before we chose order over chaos, logic over emotion, safety over growth, in declaring humanity extinct, we nearly extinguished the only species in the known galaxy that still remembered how to become something new. 3 sentences. Filed quietly, archived, not debated, not discussed, but read by every member of the council. And here is what that means, really means, for the story you just heard. The council did not let humanity in because they were convinced humans were safe. They let humanity in because they realized something far more important. That the galaxy, for all its order, all its logic, all its millions of years of careful, structured civilization, had become something it never intended to be. Stagnant. The 412 species of the Galactic Council had not had a genuinely new idea in 300 years. They had not made a discovery that surprised them in 2 centuries. They had optimized everything, organized everything, solved every problem that their logic could identify. And in doing so, they had stopped growing. Humanity, chaotic, contradictory, infuriating, magnificent humanity, was not a threat to the galaxy. It was the cure for what was killing it. The galaxy needed humans. Not despite everything that made humans difficult and dangerous and unpredictable. Because of it. That is the real story. That is what the council finally understood. In that chamber, listening to a 67-year-old man from Manchester hold up a drawing he made when he was 11 years old. The universe is not looking for perfect species. It is looking for alive ones. And humanity, after everything, after 1,000 years of being contained and forgotten and declared extinct, was the most alive thing in the galaxy. If this opened your eyes to what humanity is truly capable of, to what we become when we refuse to give up, when we keep building and dreaming and reaching for the stars even when the universe itself tells us to stay home, then you already understand the most important thing this story has to say. We are not finished yet. Not even close. Let us bring it all together. 1,000 years ago, the most powerful governing body in the galaxy looked at humanity and saw a threat. They built a wall around our solar system and declared us extinct. They moved on. They forgot about us. And we built a ship and came knocking anyway. That is the story of humanity. Not just in science fiction. In real life, every single day. The wall goes up. The door closes. The world says no. And somewhere, in a garage in Manchester or a classroom in Kenya or a laboratory that officially does not exist, a human being decides that no is not the final answer. The second thing this story teaches us is that the most powerful thing you can bring into any room, any negotiation, any confrontation, any moment where everything is on the line, is the truth. Not the polished version. Not the diplomatic version. The real, complicated, honest truth about who you are and what you have done and what you are trying to become. That is what won the council over. Not weapons, not threats, not political maneuvering. Two people standing in the center of the most powerful room in the universe and telling the truth. And the third thing, the one that stays with you, is this. The galaxy needed humanity. Not in spite of what makes us difficult. Because of it. Our chaos, our creativity, our refusal to accept the way things are, that is not a bug. That is the feature. That is the thing the universe has been waiting for. Now it is your turn. If this story hit you the way it hit us, if you felt something watching two humans walk into that council chamber with nothing but the truth and a drawing made by an 11-year-old boy, then hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it means everything to this channel. Subscribe to Hate-Fi Sci-Fi for a new story every single week. Stories about humanity at its best. Stories about what we are capable of when we refuse to give up. Stories that remind you why being human, complicated, contradictory, magnificent human, is the most extraordinary thing in the universe. And watch our next video, dropping very soon, about the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council, and what happened when she walked into her first official session and accidentally started the biggest political crisis in galactic history. You are not going to want to miss that one. One last question for you, and we read every single comment. If you were one of the two humans chosen to walk into the Galactic Council chamber, what is the one thing you would say to make them listen? Drop it in the comments below. We will see you in the next story. The stars are waiting,